Mrs. Jameson has a rectangular backyard. She wants to build a diagonal sidewalk across the yard. What would be the length of the diagonal sidewalk? Okay, so sometimes when you read test questions, they'll give you a picture, and sometimes when you read test questions, they won't give you a picture. My first piece of advice is to draw yourself a picture. So that's what I did here. I went ahead and drew the rectangular backyard. I labeled where I wanted the sidewalk to be. It's diagonal. And then I know the dimensions, which it didn't tell me here, but it's 24 feet long and 7 feet high or wide. So once you draw the picture, it might be easier for you to see, hopefully it's easier for you to see what shape we're dealing with here. We're not actually dealing with the whole rectangle. We are just dealing with this red triangle. And I know it's a right triangle because in a rectangle, the angles have to be 90 degrees. So I'm dealing with a right triangle. And anytime I want to find the missing side length of a right triangle, I can use Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, I will admit that word problems like this are a bit tricky to figure out how to get started, which is why I always suggest looking at the picture, because it doesn't say solve using the Pythagorean Theorem. You have to look at it, you have to identify that it's a right triangle, and then you have to remember to use the Pythagorean Theorem with right triangles. So once we identify and know that we're using the Pythagorean Theorem, remember that C has to be the hypotenuse. It has to be the side across from the 90-degree angle. I usually plug them in the Pythagorean Theorem least to greatest. That way I don't make mistakes. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to plug it in. 7 squared plus 24 squared equals c squared. And I'm trying to solve for the length of the sidewalk. So I'm trying to solve for c. Now you can type these, you can do these in your brain or your calculator separately. You could do 7 squared and get 49, and then do 24 squared and get whatever you get, and then add them up. But I want to show you that you can also type it in the same step. Since when you look at this side of the equals, since there are no letters over here, you can type all of that in one step in your calculator. So that's what I like to do. So I would go over here and I would do 7 squared plus, I already forgot what it was, 24 squared. And that tells me that that whole side equals 625. So all of this equals 625, and I'm just going to bring down my c squared. Now remember, we're solving for c. Right now, this tells us that the area off of this side is 625 units, the area of the square. Well, I don't care about the area of the square. I want to know the length of the sidewalk. So I'm not done yet. I need to finish solving. And when you solve an equation, if you want to get rid of a square, the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So you would square root both sides, and the reason for that is because squares and square roots cancel, leaving you with just c. And then we go back to our calculator and we type in the square root of 625, and that's going to equal 25. Now remember, every square root has a positive and a negative answer, but let's go back and think about our problem. It says, what is the length of the sidewalk? You can't build a sidewalk that's negative 25 feet long. It has to be the positive answer. So the length of our sidewalk is 25 feet long. Just the positive answer here.